Welcome to LabMinutes.com. In this video, we will introduce you to Cisco Virtual Security Gateway, or VSG. First of all, do not let the name fool you. Just because the name contains word gateway, it doesn't mean that it acts like a gateway in the sense that it doesn't really route traffic. What VSG allows you to do is enforcing security policies at Layer 2 domain. If you're familiar with VLAN access controllers or VACL and private VLAN, you can think of VSG as an enhanced policy-driven version of those. Although VSG relies on access lists similarly to VACL, you can do much more with options to use object group like those found in ASA, where you can group things like IP, protocol, and port. And now with VSG, even some of the virtual machine attributes like the name of the VM or cluster, and use them to construct an access list. VSG is a stateful firewall, so you do not need to worry about allowing bidirectional traffic, and it supports application inspection needed when dealing with protocol like FTP. You do not configure VSG directly on the CLI once it is installed, but instead you register with the Virtual Network Management Center, or VNMC, which is totally a separate VM, and perform all of your configuration there on the GUI. There are many components that make VSG work, so let's start off with talking a little bit about relationships between these different components. Starting off with the VNMC, which you can see here is the central of everything. VNMC registered to the vCenter to obtain VM attributes for VSG to use to build access policies. Although VSG can reference these name attributes within the policies to make it more readable and intuitive to human, the underlying policies evaluation process still relies on the IP information. And this is why we have the VSM that registered to the VNMC to provide this IP to VM mapping. And you can view this being very similar to the name command on the ASA that allows the ASA to refer to a host by name instead of IPs in the ACL. VSG, on the other hand, registered to VNMC to download the security policies since all the configurations are done on the VNMC. We are kind of already familiar with the communication between the VSM and VEM if you have watched some of our Nexus 1000V video. But now the VM also need to communicate with the VSG through vPath. And the way vPath works is the VEM will send the first packet of the flow to a designated VSG for policy evaluation. VSG then sends the evaluation result back, and VEM can use that result to treat subsequent packets locally without having to send them through the VSG again. VNMC by default provides you with organization hierarchy of a typical data center. So from the top, you have root. Going down the hierarchy, you have tenants, data center, applications, and tier. Since this organization is given and cannot really be changed, you kind of need to design your virtual data center around this model. A VSG, or even multiple VSGs, can be assigned to pretty much anywhere in this hierarchy depending on your design. If what you have is a very simple network like a single network, you can just assign that at the tenant level. But if your design requires for multiple application supports, you can assign it at the application levels, one for each application. Just keep in mind that every VSG that you assign is usually a separate VM. When you configure policies, whether they are device or security policies, you have complete freedom to configure them at pretty much any organization level, and the policies will be automatically inherited and used by the VSG at the same or lower level of that hierarchy. For example, so on the left-hand branch here, if you have an object groups or ACL policies that can be used by both VSG at the application level, you can define them at the data center, tenant, or root level so they can be shared. The rule of thumb is define more generic policies towards the top and a more specific policy closer to the VSG themselves at the bottom. Just to give you an idea of what VSG can do, here we have 4 VMs on the same VLAN that have been assigned to a port profile that is attached to a VSG. So any traffic that goes through those ports is subject to policy evaluation by that VSG. On the VNMC, you can group these VM into logical zones, and here we have web and database zones, and then create a security policies that restrict traffic that enters and leaves these zones. In this example, we allow servers in the web zones to communicate with the database servers and the outside world, while there's no direct communication between the database servers and the outside world allowed. This essentially created a logical topology that looks something like this without a need for multiple VLANs or IP subnets. Remember, this can happen at any of these organization level, whether it is the tenants, data center, apps, or tiers. Just to reiterate, VSG strictly deals with traffic that's seen on the VLAN, and by no means it serves as the default gateway. In addition to VSG, you still need a device like ASA or CSR1000V to act as a gateway if you wish to have your virtual environment communicate with the outside world. So hopefully this video provides you with enough background on VSG, and now we are ready to continue with our VSG labs. Remember to sign up on our website and be on our mailing list to receive our latest video updates and get more access to our lab material. Thank you for watching LabMinutes.com. I'll see you guys in the next video.